Hello there everyone, it's Acer back today, and one of the most asked questions that I get over on my TikTok is, was Han Solo a Force Ghost in Episode 9 of The Rise of Skywalker? And the answer to that is no, he was not a Force Ghost, but that question is usually followed up by another question, which is, how is he able to appear on the remains of the second Death Star to Ben Solo if he was not a Force Ghost? And that's a very good question, and I totally understand why there's a bunch of people that are confused by that. So, that is what today's video is going to cover, but before we begin, if you enjoy these videos, definitely consider leaving a like, a comment, I greatly appreciate that, and maybe even consider subscribing. But, without further ado, let's get to the video. Okay, so first up, we've already mentioned that Han is not a Force Ghost in this moment, and I know some of you have the question, well, how can we be sure that that's the case? Because we clearly see him show up to Ben on the remains of the second Death Star. So, in this moment, Han is not actually present, and we're going to get back to that in just a moment. But the biggest indicators as to how we know he is not a Force Ghost is, for one, we know that Han is not a Force-sensitive individual, but we also can clearly see that that blue transparent hue that is around the other Force Ghosts is not present in this scene at all. So what exactly is going on in this moment if Han is not physically present appearing to Ben? So, the answer is pretty simple, and they actually give us this exposition in the film itself. Ben says, "You're just a memory," and Han responds, "Your memory." And that is it. Like, Han is seriously just a memory that Ben has that he's playing back in front of him. Now, I think it's safe to say that this is mostly a subconscious thing that happens because Ben is very clearly shocked when he sees his father, but it's also unclear as to whether or not that this is aided in some way by the Force, whether or not this was activated by the Force in some way, similar to that of a Force vision. But essentially what's going on here in this moment is that Ben is just so overwhelmed with guilt and grief that he's playing back the last memory that he has of his father in the ways that he wish it would have happened, in the ways that he wishes in some way it still could. The novelization of Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, actually goes on to reveal that Ben had not been able to shake the feeling of his father's hand resting on the side of his face. And so it's that final moment that Ben had shared with his dad Han that is playing out before him now in a much different way that is allowing Ben to reconcile with his past and is a way to forgive himself for all the things that he's, feeling tremendous guilt for. And it's a point of clarity that is, really the final straw that is allowing Ben to return to the light after Leia had just sacrificed her life to bring him home. And that's another popular question that I get, like, why wasn't it Leia to appear to Ben in this moment? And aside from the unfortunate and sad reality that Carrie Fisher had passed away before filming this movie, there is a canon explanation as well. As Leia uses the last of her energy in her final moments, she essentially goes into this state of limbo. She doesn't become one with the Force until Ben also sacrifices his own life to save Rey by the end of the movie. And I know that there's a bunch of people out there that would have rather seen Anakin Skywalker show up to talk to Ben in this moment, but I feel like that is the wrong scene for that to happen. I think exactly how it played out with Han Solo was just absolutely beautiful. The symbolism, the poetry, I think that was done so well that Anakin had never had any previous encounter with Ben. And so I think if there was any moment where I would have wanted to see Anakin show up to talk to Ben, it would have been at the very end of the movie when Ben is at the bottom of the pit that Palpatine had thrown him in. And I think maybe if, when all the voices are talking to Rey, if Anakin took one little moment to talk to Ben at the bottom of the pit to encourage him to, crawl out and go save Rey, I think that would have been the perfect moment for him to show up. But I much prefer, Han Solo, Ben's dad, appearing to him as the memory. I think that was just done so well. I definitely much rather prefer that version rather than Anakin showing up instead. Now, I intended to bring this up earlier in the video, but I mentioned the poetic nature of these two scenes, and I just wanted to clarify exactly what I meant by that. So in both of these moments, Han has placed his hand on the side of his son Ben's face, but pay attention to the lighting. In Episode 7, it's very dark and red hue, which is symbolic of Ben basically being consumed by the darkness. But then in Episode 9, when Ben is, playing out things that he wished could still happen, when he's reconciling with his past, he's surrounded by water, it's a very bright scene, and, there's a blue hue to it, which is just, all symbolic of purity and, him returning to the light. And I just think that is just one of the most cool things about these two, scenes, and for that reason, I really appreciate this moment. But back to the main question at hand, what exactly is Han Solo in this moment? How does he appear to Ben? He is not a Force Ghost, he is Ben's memory, and Ben is basically using this moment as a way to reconcile with his past, to forgive himself, and to move on. And, there's that moment that, everyone definitely remembers where Ben goes, "Dad," and Han responds with, "I know." And it's just so beautiful. Episode 9 definitely had a decent amount of flaws, but this was not one of them. I think the scene is just so beautiful, it's just so awesome, and I just really love it a lot. But definitely stay tuned for more Star Wars videos, guys. Thank you for watching. Definitely leave a like, drop a comment, maybe subscribe if you're new here, and yeah, thank you so much. May the Force be with you guys, always.